This is the Investor Mindset Podcast, and I'm Steven Pesavento. And for as long as I can remember, I've been obsessed with understanding how we can think better, how we can be better, and how we can do better. And each episode, we explore lessons on motivation and mindset from the most successful real estate investors and entrepreneurs in the nation. All right, guys, welcome back to the Investor Mindset Podcast. I have Chris Lopez on the show today. How you doing, Chris?
Very good, Steven. Glad to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to get into some of your background. Chris was bitten by the entrepreneurial bug his sophomore year of college, and then he graduated 2.5 years later running that online marketing business. But at his core, he always knew he wanted the wealth creation and financial freedom that career in real estate investing can give to people. And now, fortunately, after some transition, Chris is an investor-friendly realtor who helps other people build amazing rental portfolios to help them get set up for retirement planning and the life after. So you ready to jump into things, Chris?
I am. Tell me where you want to start.
Awesome. I love it. So you've obviously done a lot of things. I'm excited to get into your background a little more, but why don't we start out by taking a look back? What events or influences from your childhood shaped who you are today?
I came from a pretty normal childhood, good middle-class parents. Luckily, they both stayed together my entire lives, raised in a good household. So mostly all really good stuff compared to a lot of people out there. But one thing that I did not realize until I actually started building businesses around, probably I was around 19 or 20. When I was a baby, I had tubes in my ears, which they put in there for too much fluid. And what that meant was I could not hear what people were saying around me as a baby, as a toddler. So therefore, I always had very much delayed speaking skills. So even actually up until about 4 or 5 years old, my parents later told me, this was years later, like decades later, that when I was, 4 or 5, getting into like pre-kindergarten, kindergarten, they weren't sure if I was a hearing problem or if I may have like a major learning disability or some type of, real speech issue. Luckily, it was just from the fact that I never developed those hearing skills and was a little bit behind. But I spent years going through speech therapy to help me become a better talker. Up until probably I was 8 or 9 years old, I was going to speech therapy pretty regularly. And of course, until I was 5 or 6, only my parents could understand me. So I have very few memories of this other than a few like tracks here and there. But fast forwarding to that sophomore, junior year of college when I was becoming an entrepreneur and really doing a lot of the sales side of things, I realized I call it a skeleton in the closet, is that I would often talk very quickly, like just get my words together as quickly as possible, have no breaths in between my sentences, no punctuations I was talking. And one of my mentors / coach said, he goes, why do you rush things? And I said, I was like, I don't know. Because I was, recording my phone calls to become a better salesperson, become a better talker. I said, I don't know. And then I think about it and do it, and finally hit me. I said, you know what? I think it all stems back to my learning or my speech issues when I was a little kid, because people always had a hard time hearing what I was saying. So my solution was to speak really fast. And I realized this because as I was talking to people, I started becoming self-conscious. Like I would say something and I would shy away from certain words, 3 or 4 or 5 syllable words. And I still do stumble sometimes, but I would start talking to people and I didn't get anxious, but I actually got, I don't know what the right word is, but like I would get mentally nervous that I would say the wrong thing and they wouldn't be able to hear me. Yeah. So once I realized that, I had a big mental shift because I identified the problem, which is I think always an important thing, but then I was able to start overcoming it with, great, if I just practice, listen, record my phone calls and listen to it, which if you guys have never done that, it is one of the worst experiences in the world of hearing yourself, recorded on the phone or watching a video of yourself. It's one of the worst things in the world to do, but it gives you such massive improvement. So that was one of the biggest things that it overcame, but also helped me as I started going through those initial couple of years of becoming a salesperson.
That's so interesting because for so many of us, we don't even recognize the things from childhood, from growing up, and how they're actually impacting us in our lives today when we're grown adults, when we're in our careers and doing these things. But being able to have the knowledge to know, okay, well, that's probably where this is from. And now that I'm recognizing it, I can actually change it. I can upgrade it. I can make a modification because, it sounds like when you were younger, you were speaking fast because maybe if I slide all the words together, then maybe they won't notice that I said something the wrong way. I need to just rush through it. But it really plays heavily into a sales role because pacing and leading and talking at the same speed and letting people kind of catch up to what you're talking about is so important that you would have never known if you wouldn't have taken that step to actually listen to yourself and go and seek some mentorship. Hey, well, how can I get better at this?
Yeah, and to give you guys some timeline, it was 2002 that I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, which kind of set me down this path. So this was, 15, 16 years ago when I identified this. So I was, I think, 20, 21 at the time or so. I still have those same mental roadblocks. Some instance of it, not nearly as much, but still is a consideration in my mind once in a while. It still happens. I still find myself going back to some of these old habits or old mental nervous tics, which is really interesting to me because I've sold a ton of stuff, on webinars and podcasts and one-on-one sales, but I still have this little voice or thing in my head that comes out once in a while. Don't know why. And I think it's just, I'll live with it for the rest of my life, but repetition helps cure it.
It really does. And it's good to give ourselves grace to recognize, and thanks for sharing that you still deal with this because, for so many of us, we try to make that change. We go and do the work. We study, we're doing that personal development. We're changing our mindset. We're changing the way we think. We're trying to upgrade our businesses, but sometimes we get pulled back to that old way of thinking because it was like grooves in a record, those were really deep and those were there for a long time. And you were playing that record over and over again. Well, we scratched out the old ones and created some new ones that are more healthy and helpful for us. But sometimes it's easy for that, record needle to fall back in on those old habits.
Are you sure our listeners know what a record is?
Surprisingly enough, we have more than just millennials on here. And luckily for all of us millennials, we do have Wikipedia. So we can all go look that up and learn about it later.
That's good. That did, and actually I really like that metaphor, joking. So I really like that. And that made me think of one of the books I read that really helped me with that mental roadblock and just, I think, some success in general. And I haven't read this book in years, just popped my mind now because of that metaphor, but it was Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell. It was the updated version where Dan Kennedy rewrote it or edited it, but it was the newer version of it. And that was one of the few books that I read numerous times and I, highlighted and penciled all the pages on there. But that was a major book that helped me out because it really focused on visualizations. And I think the word track they used was, playing like the movie trailer of your life, like visualize the life you want. And I would do that and I would visualize myself having success. I would visualize myself speaking clearly and enunciating things and just being a very good communicator. Not the most amazing person in the world, but just a really good one. And I'm certain that was one of the things that helped me just, take myself and therefore my business up 1 or 2 or 3 notches.
Yeah. I've heard of that book. Surprisingly, I've never read it. It's been mentioned a few times, but the whole idea of visualization is so key. Thanks for reminding me about it. I need to implement a little bit more of that in my own life, right? We're all on this journey trying to get a little bit better every day. But when you can see the way that you want it to be and it can feel as if it is, then it's surprising when you do that long enough and you look back years later and you're like, holy smokes, that's exactly what I was visualizing. And now I'm actually applying it in my life.
Yeah. And actually, it's good that you mentioned that because I need to start doing that myself because I did that a lot, 13, 14, 15 years ago. And I don't do it nearly as often now, but one of their techniques was, don't read at night, don't watch a movie at night, but fall asleep at night, laying in bed, visualizing yourself playing this mental movie trailer. And that way your subconscious would work on it while you're sleeping. And then you'd wake up the next day programmed better. And so, whether that's true or not, I haven't done a study on it, but it sure seemed to make a difference for me when I did that. And I've definitely done that now and then, but I've not done it with the consistency like I did, 15 years ago.
Yeah, it's, we're all just humans trying to get a little bit better. And frankly, I'm no perfect human out there. I'm not doing all this stuff all the time, but when I do it, I do notice that it makes a big difference. So what I'm curious about, so you mentioned you started your first business back in college and you kind of got that entrepreneurial bug. Tell us a little bit about that, and what was it that pulled you into the entrepreneurial and business space?
Yeah, so going back, ever since probably freshman, sophomore year of high school, I knew I wanted to be an engineer. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I grew up in Virginia in the suburbs of DC. And so I did early decision to Virginia Tech, which is a great engineering school. Plus it's in-state, so had really good tuition back then. And I went there, became an engineer. And this is what I knew I wanted for years and years and years to do. Well, about 3 months into the engineering curriculum, I realized, I don't want to do this. So that kind of, it rocked my boat for certain. So I started figuring, hey, what the heck do I want to do? And I had no clue. And I said, okay, well, I don't know what I want to do. Let me start figuring out what I don't want to do. And that's where I started. I made a list of what I don't want to do. And that was go to some mediocre job that I didn't really care about, sitting in 2 hours of Washington, D.C. traffic daily, and where I had to wear a suit, tie, and dress shoes every day. Those were, I'm sure I wrote down some other things, but those were the main bullet points that I still remember, 20 years later. And so I said, okay, great. This is what I don't want to do. And I just started, reading and researching, doing what I could. And then one day in one of my one of my classes, someone handed me a book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Like, hey, you should read this. I was like, all right, sure, I'll read it. So I read the book and it just blew my mind. If you guys had Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it's an easy read, but it's one of those ones that just is helps you mentally shift and it just opens up a whole new world. So the metaphor I use is I just got smacked with a 2x4 on how to go out there and be a business owner and get in the world of investing. Because I was like, wow, I never knew this stuff was out there. Or I knew it, but I never understood that could apply to me, I should say. So I did that. And the guy who gave me the book, he was actually if you guys know what Amway or Quickstar is, they're like they're old school, they're a behemoth multi-level marketing company. And so he showed me the book. Then he showed me the presentation they have on how you can build residual income with it. I was like, yeah, dude, I'm in. Let's just sign up. So I did that for a few months and realized that was not for me, but it opened up my eyes and it kind of just got me down that whole entrepreneurial path. And so from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I eventually read, the next biggest book I read was Robert Allen's Multiple Streams of Income, which is a classic back from 20 years ago. It's one of the best, I think, business copywriting books ever written. And so my very first inclination between Robert Allen and Kiyosaki was to go into real estate. I actually talked to a couple agents in Blacksburg, Virginia, to actually about buying a house and getting roommates for rentals, and just realized it was kind of beyond my scope. And I had $3,000 saved up from my construction summer job, but I didn't have the knowledge, the capital, or anything to go out there and buy property. But one of Robert Allen's things was go out there and build a MLM company. And I was like, well, all right, I'll do it again. I'll keep failing until I find something. And so I joined his network marketing company, not the one he built, but just one that he was involved with as a independent contractor, because they were starting to do some things on the internet. Again, this is 2003. So we weren't getting AOL floppy disk, but we were getting AOL CD-ROMs. And we were still using AOL Instant Messenger to talk and figure out college parties for the weekends.
I remember those days. We were running some pretty crappy internet. I remember getting 6 of those free 2-week AOL DVDs and using a different login until, unfortunately, we found out later that I had signed up 14 times for AOL, and luckily, as a kid, they didn't actually charge us, but that was a whole nother story.
Yeah, so you remember that heyday. It was very different. So it's very different than the internet. So I was like, okay, well, I didn't like about the previous Amway experience was they would say, go to the bookstore and say, hey, you look like a sharp person, try to recruit them. Or everyone you talk to is a recruiter. I was like, yeah, it's not me.
Yeah.
But they were like, hey, we can build on the internet. So I was like, hey, this sounds good to me. It was in the health and wellness field, which I'm into health and fitness. So I was like, yeah, it's a good fit. And from there, just went off the races. What happened was they were building on the internet. And then one of my mentors I got placed with, who I'm still business partners with, and we do some investing together, just a phenomenal guy. His name is Jason. He had a gigantic impact on my life. And he took me under his wing because I said, hey, dude, I will work my butt off. I will run through walls. I'll do anything I need to out there. I just don't know what to do. I don't have the skills. So he mentored me, he guided me. And then two interesting things happened was we were building a very successful network marketing organization by recruiting other people and also getting a customer base. So this was like right as Google had AdWords was becoming a thing. Every click was 5 cents a click, and I should have maxed out my credit cards and stolen from my parents to do stuff back then. But I still did. Look, hindsight's 2020. But in a matter of like a year, we had teams on 4 different continents, and we were just crushing it because we were right place, right time. We hopped on a new trend that only a handful of other people were doing.
So it sounds like you were not afraid of working really hard. You happened to get on the right train in front of the right trend, which I think is a good thing for people to be reminded of, that when you're thinking about making a transition, you want to be ahead of the trend, not behind the trend, right? You want to be ahead of it so that you can ride that trend up and not be chasing it down, because it just gets harder and harder if you're chasing it down. But what was it that was so different for you in that space that you were like, I'm going to work my butt off for this opportunity? Because I think that's the reason why you're successful.
That's a good question. I'm trying to think what I think it was just because it was just a lot of the right pieces were in there. I don't think there was one thing. It was just I had a good mentor. I believed in the product that we were involved with. The way things were structured were right fit for my personality. So just a lot of little right things. And basically they said, yeah, if you work your butt off, you'll do it. And they would also tell me, hey, you want to achieve this, here's what you need to do this week. I was like, great. I got the mindset and innovation stuff, but now I'm like, okay, I need some tactical stuff to go out there and do. I would do it. I'd see results. I'd come back to my mentor and say, hey, I did this, this, and this, and this. Here are my results. Here are my record phone calls. What do I do next week? And it was just repeat. And that was just the grind, which I love the grind. And so we built that business. And then in parallel, since this was such a different time in the internet back then, we were also building our own internal marketing system for just our own business to use. Well, a couple years later, that turned into a whole nother business where all these other people around the industry and our company said, hey guys, can we use your system? And for the first year, we said, no, this is just for us to use, because we were giving away free to our team members. It was a totally free product. And we said, wait a second, we got another business on our hands here. We're at the very least, our goal is to charge the money, hire some more staff just to get off that day-to-day work from our workload. And then from there, we got that and just grew into another business. So as one grew, would feed the other and vice versa. And so from there, we just worked hard. And I would just, as you said, that's one of the things I always said was just ride trends. Identify a trend and ride it. And we would just say, great, the next trend is Google SEO, Google PPC, YouTube, Facebook ads, podcasting. And we just, we would do each one. We'd figure it out. And then we would turn around, grow our business, turn around, implement our system. And then it was just a total win-win situation. So I'm not sure if that answered the question.
It gave me the information that I was looking for, even if it wasn't answering my question. But so what I really appreciate is that whole idea of riding a trend. So what I'm curious is, fast forward 10 years or a little bit more, and what is the trend that you're now riding? Where do you see things going, and why did you jump on the current train that you're on right now?
So I see a couple different trends here. So one, I cannot believe I'm still saying this in 2019. It's still the damn internet. Because right around 2014 or so was when I started stepping away from other businesses. Like those other businesses still bring in residual income. I still make a few bucks every month off of them. But it was just time for me to move away for a variety of reasons. Part of it was just I got bored with it and wanted a new challenge. And I was like, well, I wanted to get into real estate. I was like, you know what? I tried day trading stocks. I tried day trading currencies. I tried all this stuff. And I made a few dollars, but if you put my time into it, I was probably making like 3 cents an hour. So I was like, real estate's the way to go where you can put active time into it and, get some below market value and also not do illegal insider trading and get in trouble for it. Hey, insider information in real estate, cool, you profit. If you know that in the stock market, you're in trouble. So I liked all about that. So, I need to get into real estate somehow. And my very first inclination was not to become a real estate agent. It was to do a fix and flip. I did one fix and flip, made some money, but realized, that's going to take me like 5 years to scale, not playing to my strengths. And then I tried some wholesale lead generation for a friend of mine in Vegas who's already a very successful flipper and wholesaler. And I was like, great, I'll help him scale his offline stuff online, then copy and paste it to Denver. And I was like, wow, that's a lot harder than I thought. And even with his, because I was a variable and we were like a $20,000 acquisition. So it's not working out great, which humbles me to say that, but whatever. That's the way you learn. And then I started looking at, open houses and talking to agents. Like, to be very frank, a lot of agents they kind of suck at their job. And that's, that's a lot of people in real estate. Like, I talked to someone, hey, give me a call, and no one would call me back. I'm like, how do you not call someone that told you to call them from a sales perspective? And then I started realizing that I said, you know what? I am not the only person on the internet trying to Google information on how to buy property in Denver. And I said, that's my aha moment. If I'm doing this, there's other dudes and other ladies out there trying to do the same thing. So I'm going to leverage my marketing skills, become an agent, and I'll do the marketing angle to 3 goals was to network with people around Denver. So I've met a tremendous amount of people around Denver, to bring in clients, and for my own knowledge. And so I still see the internet as a major trend because that very few people in real estate touch it, which, because for my past business, that's all I did was 24/7 internet. All my friends were successful internet marketers. So the whole world was internet marketing to me. And then I stepped out of my bubble and was like, oh, wow, everyone's still way behind the times. This is awesome. Yeah. So I see that as a trend. And I also see Denver as the Denver real estate market from macro level as a very good long-term point to be investing in. And that's a big reason why I did what I did and became an agent here. It's property is still cash flow, but we got lots of great long-term outlooks. So I think it's going to be a mix of cash flow and appreciation. And from everything I've studied, people that buy now in the next 5, 10, 15 years, I think in 30 years will be very, very happy people. So it's a good mix of like cash flowing markets and appreciation markets. And that's just a trend I want to ride because Denver's a growing city with growing population, growing jobs.
So you found a trend in real estate. You knew you wanted to make the transition. So you were thinking to yourself, how can I make the transition into real estate while also following one of these core principles that I have, which is get ahead of a trend and follow one. But one thing I want to underline for our listeners here is, Chris is a pretty successful guy. He's done some really good things out in the world from a business standpoint. And even moving into this direction, he had some failures. He started doing what he was really good at doing for the investment real estate community, and it didn't work out. It's pretty tough stuff. I mean, there are people who are trying to go after and find individual leads every single day, but what you did was you iterated from that and you found something that could really work well for you, and you've kind of pivoted, and now this is your core focus, kind of using the internet to build a lot of authority to pull people into your funnel for you to then help them throughout the process. Was I getting that right?
That is very well said. You nailed it on the head.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people I hate to hate on brokers, but there's a reason only 3 or 4% do 90% of the business. It's because most of them suck. But for those ones that are really good, you know who you are, and I'm not talking about you. But for those ones that are really good, you have to find a way that you can serve your clients in a different fashion than just showing up and being like, hey, I do real estate. You should sign up with me. So I think a good thing for our listeners to take away from this, regardless if you're looking to be an agent, is in your industry, figure out what everyone else is doing, and then go figure out what people are not doing and what they need. Because what Chris has ended up doing is providing something that people need, and in return, he's building a whole business around it, and people love him for it.
Yeah. And, one of the phrases I use, and this is not just towards agents, but just a lot of positions in general, is don't be the commodity. If you're just a real estate agent or a lot of other professions out there, oh, well, you're just a commodity. Well, if you've done a very good job of niching yourself or drilling down to like your very hyper-specific service, your unique selling proposition, USP, that's what makes you stand out. And I think as talk about more trends, the internet's growing, so that's going to have more sales and more marketing flow, not just in real estate, but to every industry in general. It's going to go from 80-20 to 90-10 to 5-95 to 2% and 98%, where fewer people are doing more of the volume out there across the majority of industries. There's only one Amazon, there's one Google, there's one Facebook, there's one Instagram. Facebook bought them, so like it consolidates things. So that's a trend that is a very clear trend that we have great historical proof on that's happening, not just to real estate, but other industries. So I'm a big proponent of people identifying that. And then the way you ride that trend to really grow your business is to give a very unique selling proposition. If you're a commodity, you're competing with the Walmarts and Amazon on price, which in real estate is the Redfins, the Open Doors, and all these other brokerages starting on startups. I can't compete on price, but I can compete on value in a very, very specific niche. And that's why people come to me, and that's the brand I've built.
But in your niche, I'm so curious, right? Because this consolidation in all the industries is happening, right? From a wholesaling perspective, we have Open Door and Zillow and Redfin Buys and all these companies that are coming in and knocking out a lot of our margin, right? And we can still buy stuff they can't buy. We still have a USP from a direct to home buyer perspective. But for you and your business, what is your USP, and how are you providing that to people so that it's a no-brainer for them to spend more money to choose to go with someone like you?
So I call myself a real estate financial planner, which is a combination of being a real estate agent, which actually helps people, buy and sell houses. But it's real estate financial planning aspect that I really enjoy. I think is the big picture win that plays to my strength, and also is an untapped niche in real estate. If you guys ever talk to traditional financial planners and real estate investing, they don't mix. It's oil and water. I won't go down a 20 minutes rabbit hole as to why they just don't mix. But what people come to me, I don't do fix and flips. I don't do all this, all these like very short-term stuff, because it's a lot of work and a high attrition rate. But if you play the long game, hey, if you have a 20-year investment time horizon, go out there and plan for retirement or an early retirement when you're 45, 55, it's very easy to learn a few basic wealth building principles, execute on those principles, take action, and go out there and achieve that. So I sit down with people. The very first meeting when I sit down with people, like our first strategy session is great. What's the long-term goal we're going towards? And usually it's $5,000 to $10,000 a month in real estate investment income. So I have my process where I start walking people through, great, here's the dollars you want. Here's how we figure out the future inflated dollars. Here's how we backtrack. And then we do an assessment now. Great, here's where we want to go. Here's what we're seeing in the current market in Denver. And then straight. So if we want to get here, we need to have like 6 rental properties or 9 rental properties. Now let's backtrack to what you have now, which is oftentimes cash on hand, equity in a current primary residence. If people have bought in Denver 4 years ago, you've got equity in your house. Or if they bought a rental property years ago, they've got equity. And it's great. How do we tap into that cash and your equity and then deploy that to re-leverage up and then go out there and get the next round of properties? And then from there, depending on how the numbers play out, plus your monthly savings rate for real estate, we just start doing math on there. And it's like, great, well, then we're going to need to buy 3 more properties, or maybe in year 5, you sell 1 property to 1031 and leverage up and reposition the equity. And so I really build that entire model. So we go from, great, I want to go way out here in 15, 20, 25 years. And we backtrack to, great, here's what we need to do today or this month to go out there and start taking an action. And then from there, we just start executing and building. And, every 6 months, every year, we sit down and reevaluate and discuss things.
Yeah, I mean, such a smart way to think about it, because what you're doing is you're getting this vision of what the customer needs. You're getting into their mind of what they're actually looking for. They're sharing it with you. You're helping them build a plan, which is, it's simple, but it's fairly complex to be able to build that plan. But once you know how to do it, it's really easy to help other people, guide them down that path. And then you're a key part of executing that plan. If they felt like they got enough value up front, they're obviously going to want to go with you as the option to be the person to go and execute it. And so for everyone who's listening, think about how you can apply these concepts in your own business. Whether you're a real estate broker and you just thought, hey, well, Chris's model is amazing. I want to get in contact with Chris after the show and see how I can apply it in my own market. But more importantly, if you're not, how can you start doing things like this where you're giving value first without an expectation of an exchange happening, but in return, what you end up getting is clients and customers who are raving fans, who love you dearly because you are doing such good things for them that they're happy to pay whatever the price for your product or service.
Yeah, like I've had people offer to pay me retainer to go out there and help them buy real estate, which, if you're an agent out there, work with agents, that is not common.
Yeah.
I'm not taking one, but I think it's very flattering. And then something else, kind of talking what you were talking about, Stephen, was I think part of the reason I have so much success with this is, one, I do a lot of the marketing. I'm sure, you know, our listeners, they do, listen to Gary Vaynerchuk, you listen to Three of Us podcast, his spiel, but if you document, don't create. Well, that's what I'm doing. I'm, a big part of me figuring out these real estate financial plans, because this is what I did a couple of years ago for my own self, my own family, is I had to figure out all this stuff to say, great, how can I get to retirement? Because I don't have a pension. I don't have anything like that. How can I get there? And I just documented it. And then every time I do stuff with clients, I document it and put it out there as marketing. And I've helped a lot of other agents out there take the information, indirectly and help with their clients. Great. That's good karma. So I've given away a lot of information for free on the internet, which I like because it's leveraging my time. If I had to do that one-on-one with every person, that's really tough. But whether one person or 1,000 people listen to a podcast episode, same amount of time for me. Secondly, it plays into my passion. I learned years ago, if I'm not passionate about something, it just ain't going to work for me. Mm-hmm. Because, I've got a 20-year plan in real estate. And if I don't love it from day 30, well, I'm not going to love it on, month 3 and year 3 and year 13. And it becomes a very unhappy grind. And I don't have success that way. So the whole real estate financial planning, helping people achieve their goals, helping people buy and reposition real estate, that plays into my passion, which comes across to people. And so people out there, whatever niche you're in, there's almost any way you can go out there and I think weave your passion into it. If not, you may want to consider finding something where you can merge profit and passion. There are definitely some passion fields that I don't think pay very well, but a lot of times I've never met somewhere I've sat down where we can't figure out how to combine the two and come up with a plan. But it's going to be 5 or 10-year plan at the minimum to merge those two, make them a very, very, very profitable business.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Have that long-term outlook and not be so short-term focused, which I personally can say I fall into that trap sometimes. It's easy to, but
me too.
All do, right? So tell me, Chris, how would you define success and what is success to you?
So I got 2 things in my mind. It's failing faster than everyone else. I don't care about looking the best or being the best, because I just know what's worked for me is, I don't know what I don't know. So if I just go out there and do it, great. Either works or it doesn't. If it works, awesome. If it doesn't, great. I'll take my black eye, get up, do it again, repeat. And it may not be the smartest, action, but it's guaranteed to get results. If I fail enough, I will eventually figure it out one way or the other. The other definition of success for me might sound really odd, but it's the metaphor of dying while I climb a mountain. Because 15 years ago I started my other business, or my first business, and that was a big chapter in my life. That chapter's over. Now I'm in real estate. And part of the reason I got out of that other industry was just because I was really, really close to the peak of the mountain, metaphorically speaking. I was diminishing returns. The challenging parts were over for me. And that's what I enjoy, is the challenge and the fun of it. And so, it's time for me to climb a bigger, different, badder mountain to go out there and learn. And I think I'll be on the real estate mountain for a big part of my life, at least for the next, 15 or 20 years. But I'll eventually climb a different mountain. That might be something else in real estate. That might be a totally different industry. That might be when I'm very, very wealthy and I'm giving my money away in charity. I don't know what it is. But for me, the definition is to continually challenging myself and then basically die while I'm climbing that next mountain.
Well, I can tell that you're off to a good start. Based on that definition, do you feel like you're successful?
Yes.
I love the immediate answer of yes without any question. You're one of the first people who have jumped out and said it with that much oomph. I appreciate that. And why? Well, what I find, Chris, and our listeners will probably relate, is that it's probably about 50-50. People write out this definition of success, and then they're kind of like, I think I could be a little bit more successful. I think I could do better. It's sometimes people get caught up in this achiever's mindset where it's they don't appreciate maybe where they're at, right? That could be the next level. I think it's easy for people who are pushers and shakers to do that. And that's why I appreciate that you and called it out, that you were like, yes, without a doubt, I don't have to say anything else on it.
Yeah.
So tell me, what are some of the keystone habits, the things that maybe you do on a daily or weekly basis that help you live a better life? And, just to say, you might not have any that jump out, but I'm curious if there's anything that really has made a big difference in your life.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna give you a probably interesting answer because to give everyone context who's listening right now, about 17 days ago, we had our second daughter. So she's like 2.5 weeks old. And so we also have a 2-year-old daughter. So there's life before kids, life before marriage, life after kids. And, life before kids and life for marriage, I was so regimented on everything I did every day, from waking up and meditating and working out and eating perfectly clean and time blocking. And most of that stuff's just out the window now with kids. So I think something I have come to realize, and I'm starting to appreciate it from like the big picture life experience aspect of it, is that things change. So depending on, I think, where someone is on their life, at their life, it's going to absolutely change, because what I do now, as far as like daily habits, routine, are absolute crap to what I was doing 5 years ago. Yeah. And I don't want to make that sound bad towards anything towards my family or kids, because absolutely I would not trade anything I have right now, do it differently, but it just changes drastically. So now for me, some of the key points, I'd say probably the most important thing is going into deep work. And that's the latest phrase I'm calling it. I read a book called Deep Work by Cal Newton, I think his name. I think that's what it is. Someone recommended to me, listen to podcasts of that. I read the book, and it kind of reinvigorated me to get into really focused work areas. Were great. I turn off my cell phone and email for 2 or 3 hours at a time to focus on some very high producing or highly productive activities. Creating content, creating real estate financial plans, writing, sometimes just sitting on my deck or in my office with a 10-foot whiteboard and brainstorming for strategy. And I think taking that time to just make sure you shut out the entire world for an hour or two has made a huge difference for me. And it's made me so much more productive and has really lowered my stress level. So that's the most important thing right now, is just making sure I block out time to get into deep work and just minimize distractions in the world. And I try to do it, my goal is to do it 5 days a week, about 3 hours a day. Usually don't hit that, but if I can get 3 or 4 sessions like that a week, I am so productive, and some of the most productive I've ever been in my entire life. So I'm getting back into that state of mind of just, I got to prioritize these 2 or 3 activities for the week and damn everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. So getting into this super focused state so that the work output that you're doing is at the highest level, because you're just focused on just doing one thing really deep. I can definitely relate to when I do that, things go really well. And it's just hard sometimes. You get caught up in this distraction environment. You really do need to close things out. And so you can just, do some thinking.
Yeah. And the world keeps revolving. And, I'm in a sales position as an agent, and, I've structured things to where everything keeps moving on without me. And my clients don't expect me to respond to every text or email or phone call within 3 minutes. Yep. I've got people in place to help me out with that, but I've structured things so I can be very highly productive, but also take off that mental worry, oh my gosh, is this getting done? Because if you're negotiating real estate, 3 hours with your phone off can be, is usually not to your benefit. But if you got the right people and systems in place, great. I took care of that. Now I can focus on, my best use in time, which is doing deep financial modeling and creating content.
That's great. So we've made it to my favorite part of the show, the growth rapid fire round, where the questions are quick, but the answers don't need to be. So tell us, Chris, what's a book that's impacted your life the most, or one you're excited about right now?
I'm going to go back to that deep work book. I don't read as many books as I used to, but that book has had the biggest impact on me in the last couple years for sure. It's nothing new that I did not already know, but it's one of those things where I read, I was like, oh yeah, I need to do that. Oh yeah, I used to do this. Oh yeah, all that. I was like, okay, great. And I was like, you know what? If I want to get to, my long-term goal, I need to restructure my life and restructure my business to make things more efficient. And also, I want to make sure I have time to be there as a husband, father for my family, not just work 300 hours a week, but great. I can unplug and mentally just unplug from work to spend time with my wife or my daughters. So that book is my latest, biggest recommendation for people.
Definitely adding it to the top of the list. I've read a lot about it, but I haven't read it yet. So from an inspiration standpoint, who are some of your mentors and how do you look at going out and finding great mentors? You told a little story earlier about one of yours, but tell us a little more.
Ooh, so you don't need a quick answer on this one, right?
Quick answers are not required.
All right, good. So a phrase that I don't know if I've coined or stolen from someone inadvertently is finding a vested mentorship. And so a lot of people say, oh, great, I want to find a mentor. Like, oh, hey, Stephen, can I go out and buy you a cup of coffee or buy you lunch to pick your brain? Or people I'm like, no, that does not sound appealing to me because I don't care about the $5 coffee or the $20 lunch. I care about that hour of my time. That's way more valuable to me. And so when people do that, I usually say no. I just don't have the time to do it, nor the desire to. So I don't go around trying to find mentors that way. Now, a lot of people have, but it just has not worked for me. So rather, when I'm getting into a new industry or a new area I want to learn to become successful in, I go out there and say, hey, great, who can I find out there that I want to learn? And that just comes from Googling and listening to podcasts and going to local events and saying, great, wow, I really like that person, or wow, that's a person I want to connect with. And sometimes it's just great, I want to establish that relationship, but sometimes it turns into something bigger. And so that's where I've had a lot of success is creating I call it vested mentorship relationships. Because a big reason, I'll give you two here example in Denver, is a few years ago when I became an agent, I started calling brokerages and calling people and saying, hey, look, I'm getting my license in the near future. I've got this amazing internet marketing background. I've done this, this, and this, and this. I need to find someone out there that's really successful in the real estate investing world that I can partner with and go out there and I can drive a ton of business, drive a ton of brand recognition, drive a ton of leads that way because I can do marketing. But I don't know the content to go out there and create it. So did that, found someone. And it was Charles Roberts. If you guys don't know him, he helped build Your Castle Real Estate. He's been in the investing world for like 15 or 18 years around Denver. Super knowledgeable guy, very successful. I mean, a ton of people know him around Denver, great reputation. It's like, cool, that's the guy I want to be in 20 years or in 10 years or whatever it is. So connect with him. And then, within a couple of weeks, we are working together. We are creating content. I had this amazing mentorship possibility or relationship with Charles. And he was vested because the more I had success in driving his name out there in leads, it was a win-win for both of us. And then the next example is, another iteration of it is, one of the gentlemen that Charles connected with me a couple of years ago was like, hey, this guy does internet stuff too. He's in real estate. You guys should just talk. I was like, absolutely. His name is James Orr, and he is up in Fort Collins. And he is an investor, an agent, also a computer programmer, just a brilliant person. And he's actually the guy that coined the term the real estate financial planner that I'm helping him market. And just through that relationship, a really neat opportunity has come up to learn from him, who's just one of the most brilliant people I've ever met in real estate, and another good opportunity to help me grow my real estate business down here. And on the big flip side, is go out there and create a new industry in real estate financial planning. And I got that because I had very intention purpose. And I say, great, you've got this. Here's how I can add value. Before I ask you for anything, Stephen, I want to give you. Say, hey, you know what? I've been watching your stuff. You have this, this, and this, and this. I can do this for you. Would that be of help? And that has flipped the script so many times for me, where I've given you two huge mentorship examples, which has changed my life out here and has changed my financial future. But I've had lots of other, just very smaller ones as well, which is just a great connection, a great relationship. But going out there, creating a win-win situation and giving value before ever asking for value from a mentor and creating a two-way street, that's the ticket in my mind.
Give value first, folks. That is definitely the key across the board. Build great relationships without expectations, and people are going to be vested in your future. Wow. I can really appreciate that. That's actually part of the way that I started learning was I went out there and I found great people and I did work for them for free. And in exchange, I got to learn all the things in their mind. And it's just a great way to get started, a great way to take your life and your business to the next level. So finally, from a purpose perspective, Chris, what drives you to live your best life every day?
I don't have any good one-liners or clear things. I think it goes back to me just that desire to climb the mountain, and I like challenging myself. As I'm talking and thinking about this, I'm flashing back to where I did achieve financial independence, or I escaped the rat race, going back to my network marketing online days. If you guys have ever played that Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant game, where you escape the rat race, where your passive income is greater than your expenses, I achieved that. And I achieved it through business income. I didn't turn that into investment income, which was one of my mistakes in my 20s, which is now one of the things I'm not making that mistake again. So I escaped the rat race. And so I had a couple of years where I didn't have to work for money. Money came in every week, actually every day, every week, and all my bills were paid and allowed me to live a really fun lifestyle. Probably had too much fun because I didn't invest much of the money, but whatever, there are worse things to do in your 20s. And so what I realized from there, because I took time off, because great, I don't have to get out of bed today. I don't have to make a single phone call. I don't have to do anything. And after 3 days of that, life kind of sucked. And I was like, you know what? I gotta be doing something new. And what I realized in that is I like the creation process. I like the creative process of starting something new. I like the building, whether it's creating a family. I'm learning now that, raising little human beings is probably the biggest creation process in the world. So this is a fun new thing I'm going through. And then also just the business standpoint, the investment standpoint is that new challenge. Great, for good or bad, I like to do things my way. If someone says, great, here's the exact thing you need to go out there and have success, I'm going to take it, do some things, but also do my own creative flair to it as well, which can work if you go out there and actually do activities. Other times follow the model, but I also like to create that new way of doing things, a new opportunity. So it's the creation process for me that drives myself, because if I sit there and do nothing all day, I'm bored out of my mind, and I just am not in a good spot, because it's weird. I'll have all this time. If I'm doing anything, I'm like, well, then I eat like crap. I don't exercise. Even though I got all this time during the day, if I'm not mentally stimulated with that, I don't do it.
Well, this has been so much fun, Chris. Thank you so much for opening up your mind and sharing a little bit about yourself. Where can people find out more about you or get in touch?
The easiest way is to go to the website, www.denverinvestmentrealestate.com. It's not creative, but you guys get the point. denverinvestmentrealestate.com.
Awesome. And we'll include links to that in the show notes if you want to get in touch with Chris. And thank you so much. I look forward to the next time we get to hang out.
Thanks, Stephen. I enjoyed this.
Thank you for listening to the Investor Mindset Podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Head over to theinvestormindset.com to join the Insider Club, where we share tools and strategies from the top investors and entrepreneurs on how to take it to the next level.